Okay, let's start then. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. To this webinar that is organized by the Africa Transport Policy Program in partnership with FIA. It's a webinar where we would like to present and discuss three studies. The first one is guidance to prepare road safety strategies in an urban context. And we also present traffic management for Sub-Saharan African cities. And from FIA, a study on motorcycle safety and last mile connectivity in Lusaka and Maputo. This is the first. The reason we put these three studies together is that we think there is a synergy and a link between road safety, traffic management, and motorcycle as a mode of transport for reasons, for safety reasons, and for traffic management as well in the African context. So we will have three presenters. Martin Small will present the report on road safety strategy guidance. And we have Gladys, who will present the findings on the traffic management and road safety in African city setting. So without further ado, I would like to pass the floor to Kauri to present the presenters, and then we can kick off the presentation. Thank you. Kauri, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I would first like to introduce our first presenter. His name is Martin Small. He's a road safety expert. He's leading road safety management consultant and has worked extensively across Africa and Asia for a variety of clients, including with SSATP on projects in Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, Lesotho, Eswatini, Nigeria, and more. He's also the president of the Australasian College of Road Safety and a non-executive director for the RAA, a FIA-aligned mobility club of South Australia. He has also previously held road safety leadership roles in Australian and New Zealand governments. Without further ado, I hand it over to Martin Small for his presentation.
Thank you very much, Kauri and Mustafa. It's great to be with you here today, and lovely to see some friends in the chat, and I hope to support discussion as we go. So this is a presentation on a guide prepared by myself and Tawe Adoashong, the road safety pillar lead for DP3 in SSATP. It was based initially on work that we had done in Addis Ababa and Ethiopia and Accra in Ghana. I'm going to talk briefly about the overall context for the guide, work through the 5 core parts of the guide, and touch very briefly on big issues that are considered necessary to consider as you are preparing, as cities are preparing a road safety strategy, and finish with some key messages. So there's rapid urbanisation and motorisation in Africa's cities is placing significant stress on the urban mobility systems, and residents are being killed and seriously injured in very large numbers. So SSATP supported cities in Addis Ababa and Accra through a relatively simple strategy development process. And really, it's the learnings from this and from other work that is being brought together in this guide. Some of the other learnings were a study in across Nairobi, Mumbai, and Bogota, so across America, Africa, and Asia, which put forward 6 strategies to improve road safety in low and middle income countries. And so you can see a flavour of these strategies is about institutional issues. It's about the preparation that's required to tackle road safety is not just about diving in and issuing tickets or building roads. A key plank of the guide is to be clear about what safety is, and it's based on the safe system approach to road safety, which is fully aligned with the Sustainable Development Goal 11, being sustainable cities and communities. Broadly, the guide is based on the notion that safety and priorities in African cities should focus on the needs of pedestrians, cyclists, and public transport users, and enhance the overall sustainability of the urban mobility system. It's not simply about of course, it is about reducing fatalities and serious injuries. It's about doing that in the most sustainable way, which is about working within the wider mobility system of the city. Of course, in preparing a guide, there's always a need to consider whether you're preparing a linear guide, whether you're creating a whole series of feedback loops. We've sought to promote the idea that there is not just a set path, but there are some key things that are important to make sure that you do as you start working on preparing the guide. So phase 1, the guide presents as defining the problem. So we know road traffic safety is a major urban mobility and a wider development problem for African cities. So it needs to be seen not just in terms of safety, not just in terms of urban mobility, but the wider planning and development of African cities. And so by considering road safety issues in a systematic manner as part of the wider mobility issues in your city and within the wider development context of your city, is the ways in which you're going to get the best results. SSATP has done quite a deal of work in the urban mobility environment and has applied this enable, avoid, shift, and improve framework. And what we sought to do here in part was to describe the safety issues or safety potential within this framework. One thing we did was conduct a survey of the SSATP membership to get a flavour of what city administrations were responsible for what road safety functions in a city. And this is a key part of the guide. It's about familiarising yourself with the political and legislative framework governing road safety, the institutional responsibilities for delivering road safety, and the stakeholders who are going to help drive the strategy forward. So we can see, for example, that most cities have direct responsibility for the local road network and parking and footpath management, but not really for vehicle inspection or driver testing. This influences the shape of the strategy as it best fits each city. the need to build alliances, I hope, comes through the guide. And one proposition here is to develop a short document early on in the strategy development process, which allows you to gather ideas, to build a coalition of interest, and to start investigating the existing road safety data and knowledge about the issue within the city. Phase 4 is where you might more traditionally just simply go into developing the strategy document itself. After you have defined the problem, after you have worked out the stakeholders that need to be involved, after you have got some basic alignment in the interests of the various stakeholders, then you're at a point where you can start arranging reasonably formal discussions with stakeholders and work collaboratively to prepare a vision for road safety in your city, to consider and adopt a number of vital targets that are going to be important to track progress, and to start really examining some of the big issues and strategies that will carry safety forward in the city. And of course, what you're looking for is to build stakeholder ownership, stakeholder commitment to a common vision, targets, and direction. Another, the final phase is is preparing to implement. And this really is where everything needs to come together, where implementation arrangements are developed as the strategy is developed, so that there is an ongoing governing body established to oversee the strategy. So that there is a concise action plan which spells out the key deliverables in the strategy and how they're going to be funded and delivered. And where you start giving emphasis to an ongoing process of monitoring and reporting. The picture on the left is a good illustration of the sort of governance system that can be put in place by a city following the sort of guide. Now, this is not, you wouldn't see a governance, I haven't seen a governance system like this for road safety in other cities. This is one that Addis Ababa put together. They thought this is actually how we can make this work. So I'm just going to touch briefly on some of the big issues that you'll need to consider. Not because they all have the same weight or importance in every city. The guide is not a cookie cutter, not a one size fits all guide, but because these, what we can see, what the SSATP membership can see as being the major issues at play. The two primary user groups really, which you're almost certainly going to need to address, are pedestrians and motorcyclists. Pedestrians, because Africa walks. And if you do not have a city strategy which delivers first and foremost for pedestrians, you won't have a road safety strategy that will succeed. Motorcycles clearly are becoming a greater and greater means of transport within African cities and need their own special attention. Public transport and that connection with the way in which the city moves is a really important feature, and the guide draws on this in a number of different ways, as is more traditional aspects such as roading. Speed management sits at the core of any credible road safety strategy, and in African cities, it's really about, over time, building a safe environment, which is reinforced by speed limits and enforcement. Alcohol and seatbelts are typically issues which need to be considered. Alcohol possibly less so in some countries, but if you have widespread alcohol consumption in a city, you're highly likely to have a drink driving problem. And finally, connecting with the health sector in the post-crash response area is a really good way of building a multi-sectoral approach. And finally, vehicle inspections are very important, particularly in the commercial transport area. So the main things I would leave you with are the need for preparation. This is not something to dive into. It's something where the quality of the strategy and the quality of the implementation is going to reflect the quality of the preparation which is done. The need to build alliances and understand the different institutional responsibilities that you're dealing with, who can commit and how they and what they can commit to is really, really critical. Don't wait for perfect data. We all want perfect data. I'm based in Australia. I'm actually in my home country of New Zealand at the moment. We want better data. Do not try and get perfect data. Use the data that you have as well as you can to fashion an effective strategy. And go for this vital few. Don't take a shotgun approach trying to cover every single thing. Identify the vital few safety measures which are going to really drive your city forward, and really focus on the implementation, those systems that you put in place to ensure that all stakeholders are making a substantial contribution, and there's ways in which the strategy can sustain itself over its life. Kaore Musafa, I'll leave it there and very happy to take questions later on.
Thank you so much, Martin. Now I would like to introduce our next speaker. Her name is Gladys Frame. She's a traffic management and road safety specialist with 30 years experience in traffic management, road safety, and transport planning, mainly in China and other Asian countries, but also in Africa, Russia, and South America. She has been a consultant at the World Bank since 1992, working on various urban transport projects, and her experience includes intelligence transport systems, e-bikes, bicycle and pedestrian management, traffic calming, parking management, bus rapid transit and bus priority design, traffic impact analysis, transport demand management, and congestion charging. Without further ado, I will hand it over to Gladys, but first let me just put on her presentation.
Hello, everybody. Today, I'm going to talk about what inspires me about traffic management and how we can start to enable successful and enduring traffic management interventions in Sub-Saharan African cities. In this presentation, there are African and international examples. We can learn from this range of experience, but in the end, successful solutions depend on the commitment of local professionals about what works for their city. It's said that traffic management is easy compared to new road constructions, but if this was the case, why is traffic management lacking in so many cities? This is the myth of traffic management. Next slide, please. Corey, next slide.
I've moved it to the next slide.
I can't see it.
So we are on interlinking road safety and management.
I don't know if I can do it. No, right. Or try to move on to the second slide. Sorry, everyone. I'm just waiting. Is anything happening, Corey?
Yes, I'm on after the table of contents.
I can't see it on mine. Are you on the second slide?
I am. I'm on interlinking road safety and traffic management.
Okay, so I can't see that. Anyway, on the slide, the truth is, as this slide shows, is that traffic management comprises a myriad of different aspects, as shown on the slide: institutions, functional road hierarchy, catering for all road users, not just cars, managing parking. And in fact, traffic management can be more challenging than new road construction. Third slide, please. Traffic management is not separate from road safety, and road safety is shaped by road users at the top of the road user hierarchy, i.e. pedestrians. Note that I say top, not the bottom of the road user hierarchy. For too long, provision for cars has been seen as the main element of developing city transport systems. But as everyone is a pedestrian at some point in their journey through a city, we need to have a people-centric approach. A focus on cars is not necessarily a sustainable and safe way forward. Slide 4, please. In summary, we need to focus on safety, pedestrians, and bottom-up measures. This is our framework for enabling successful traffic management. Slide 5, please. Enabling stronger institutions which have clearly defined roles about who is responsible for traffic management ideas, designs, implementation, operation, monitoring and evaluation, and replication of successful measures citywide. Developing a functional road hierarchy, FRH, where the desired predominant function of each road is enabled through traffic management is crucial. Promoting walking and people-centric facilities, and finally, using ITS, intelligent transport systems, to improve safety and efficiency. Slide 6, please. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about enabling stronger institutions. These require mainly medium and long-term actions, but there are 2 short-term actions that can start now, and that is knowledge transfer and traffic management training and innovative data collection using evolving technology. Martin mentioned about don't wait for the perfect data, but data collection is evolving rapidly with new technology, and we can get better and better data. Next slide, slide 7, please. This is about avoiding inappropriate land use by developing a functional road hierarchy. And that is where we define roads by their function and not by their physical characteristics. Many roads in cities serve a mixture of incompatible functions. They have through traffic, they have arterial traffic, local traffic, shopping, markets, parking. It's this incompatible mix of functions that leads to congestion and safety issues. And achieving a rational functional road hierarchy is a key foundation to tackling congestion and safety in your cities. And how do you do that? First of all, you have to review your road network and note the existing functions of the road. There are many incompatible functions. You have fast-moving traffic together with markets and shopping. Then you need to determine what the predominant function of each road should be, and then start to reinforce the predominant function through traffic management. So, for example, you might have a wide road with many different functions. But if you decide the predominant function is for shopping, not for through traffic, then you might reduce the number of lanes and reinforce the shopping function, providing for pedestrians, safe pedestrian crossings across the road. But if that road, if its predominant function, if you decide it's for through traffic, you start to protect pedestrians. Maybe you build some service lanes to separate the local function there. So we need to move away from the idea that roads are just for moving traffic. They are part of the urban realm, the streetscape, and their function is also to cater for pedestrian activities, walking, playing, shopping, sitting out. And crucially, the road environment should feel right for its desired function. And more roads should have their predominant function for pedestrians, for walking. And the cross section should naturally reinforce this function by physical restrictions on motor vehicles and their fast speeds. Next slide, slide 8. This is just a very quick example of a functional road hierarchy in action. It is in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, and it shows how they enable prioritization for road upgrading through the road functions. Next slide, please. Here is another example, also in Ouagadougou, where it illustrates that the predominant function of this road is for two-wheeled vehicles because you're given a wide lane and there is some physical segregation. Next slide, please. And here's an example, international example, of the very famous home zones in the Netherlands, where the predominant function is walking, it is shared space, the space is traffic cammed and landscaped. Next slide, please. And here's another one in Sweden, in Stockholm in Sweden, where the whole road cross section is geared up to serve the predominant function of public transport. There's passenger access here, motor vehicle speeds are restricted by speed limits and enforcement and education. Next slide, please. To shift to people-centric facilities through traffic management, we can build on experience from Sub-Saharan African cities, from Kigali, Mombasa, Addis Ababa, and Shishwani. We need to identify barriers to walking and identify the different types of walking, and we need to implement traffic calming measures. Next slide, please. Here's an example in Kigali, a nice wide footway. Next slide, please. Here's an example in Addis, where we show physical segregation of the bicycle lane and the cycling corridor for safety. Next slide, please. Here's an example in Tshwane, in Cape Town, South Africa. This is quite interesting because this is a pedestrian crossing on a road table where the change of level is for vehicles, not for pedestrians, thus giving pedestrians a one-level journey. Next slide, please. This is in India, which illustrates a low-cost measure of a people-centric facility, coloured and textured surfacing to demarcate pedestrian refuge areas at a junction. Next slide, please. There is a high cost to free and unregulated parking. It doesn't reflect the true cost to road users, and it favours motor vehicles at the expense of other modes. Many Sub-Saharan African cities have a window of opportunity to tackle parking, and time is running out. They are sitting on a parking time bomb, whereas the demand for parking will far exceed the supply. Seas of cars can overwhelm the urban realm and block sidewalks and cause congestion. This is already happening. The cities can learn here from international experience, where many international cities actually tackled parking too late, and they are now retrofitting parking management measures. For example, the London PTAL system, PTAL, public transport accessibility levels, and is where parking provision is linked to the provision of public transport. Madrid is trying to retrofit a parking management system using intelligent transport systems. Cities need to tackle parking before it's too late. Local government needs to establish a coherent institutional framework for parking. The local government needs to control the location, the type, the amount and the pricing of parking by establishing parking zones where the cost of parking in the city centre is higher than that in outlying zones. And these zones need to coordinate off-street and on-street parking. But parking is a business, and the operation and management and enforcement can be carried out by private companies and by civilian enforcement agencies. You don't need the police to enforce parking. You know, save your police for more important enforcement. Finally, parking is a relatively easy transport demand management measure to tackle congestion. Restricting and managing parking with a rational pricing policy can enable cities to be more livable for people and enable more greener public transport modes to flourish. Next slide, please. Sub-Saharan African cities can capitalize on the latecomer advantages with regard to ITS. Due to rapidly evolving technology, including cloud computing, anonymized data collection, and smartphones, these cities can leap to the forefront of the latest technology to enable safety and efficiency for all road users. They're already doing this through mobile phone apps, etc., and mobility as a service. But there is also the need to lay the foundations of a fiber optic and or a wireless communication network. Next slide, please. Area traffic control and traffic signals are a great start in ITS, a great foundation, and these measures can favour pedestrians with green man pedestrian phases. And you can start small with just isolated sets of traffic signals not linked. And you can complement the junction designs by what we call the 3 E's: engineering, enforcement, and education. And then you can consolidate your isolated signals into a small area traffic control system, then enlarge it. Then you can develop a traffic command center and expand the ATC functions to cover monitoring, enforcement cameras, and other functions such as disaster management, incident management, and climate response like flooding or sandstorms, for example. Next slide, please. Here's an example of the high end of ITS in Seoul, South Korea. This is the TOPIS Center, Transport Operation and Information Service. And this was only really started just over 20 years ago in 1998. And South Korea has really leapfrogged to the forefront of ITS. Next slide, please. And here we have something at the kind of other end of ITS. In Sao Paulo, Brazil, you know, we have some traffic signals here, but really the main thing is ITS complemented by the 3 E's. We have engineering, you can see the junction channelization here, and this was also complemented by an education campaign and the enforcement by police and by cameras. Next slide, please. And here we have a great example of ITS and junction channelization in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Here we can see how the junction has been tightened up to make it much safer and easier for pedestrians to cross and for vehicles to have a clear and direct path through the junction. This minimizes the cycle time and the green times for everyone and just makes it much more efficient and safer. Next slide, please. So these are my conclusions. I hope I've given you a flavour of the myths of traffic management and the reality and how they can meet, and the need to combine bottom-up and top-down approaches. And finally, my parting message to you is that start with pedestrians. Be a pedestrian. Think like one when you develop your designs. In the end, your cities will be much safer, more efficient, more people-centric, more vibrant, and more livable. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gladys. Now over to our final presenter. Her name is Agi Krasnoluka, and she's the programs manager at the FIA Foundation. She joined the foundation in early 2019 after having worked for the road safety NGO TransAid over the last 8 years. She has worked across different areas of international development, including road safety, fleet management, driver training, community outreach and engagement, as well as access to health and integration of monitoring, evaluation, and learning processes into the project cycle. I welcome Agi. Please go ahead and share your presentation.
I hope you can see my slides.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, good morning, good afternoon, and maybe good evening to some of the participants. My name is Agi Krasnoluka. I'm Programs Manager at the FIA Foundation. Thank you very much to colleagues from SSATP for the invitation to join the webinar, and for the opportunity to share the findings of the research on motorcycle safety and last mile connection in Lusaka and Maputo. But before I jump into presenting results, I just wanted to take literally 90 seconds to introduce FIA Foundation to those of you who haven't heard about our organization. I'm not sure if my slides are changing. I can't see this on my screen.
You're still on the cover.
Okay, it doesn't seem to work. Apologies, everybody. Okay, we are on the slide 2. Hopefully, it won't be the same for every other slide. So, FIA Foundation, last year we celebrated our 20th anniversary of championing and working towards global road safety. It was a moment to reflect on what we achieved and what we've done, and just an example, we led successful campaigns for road safety to be included in Sustainable Development Goals. We led calls for Decade of Action for Road Safety. We supported organization of ministerial conferences in Moscow, Brasilia, and Stockholm. We partnered with many international agencies, including UNICEF, Road Safety Fund, the World Bank, Global Road Safety Facility, United Nations, WHO, very often supporting initiation and facilitation of road safety functions of those organizations. We funded and continue to fund, of course, a global road safety assessment program. We also fund and support international road safety assessment program. you might not be so familiar with the fact that we also support development of solutions for safer motorsports, and then they are mainstreaming into global road safety. We've been leading campaigning for cleaner air and climate consideration, launching a number of important, interesting initiatives around the world. We also support a number of implementing organizations, numerous partners around the world to advocate for safer roads legislation that is fit for purpose, and of course development and implementation of life-saving solutions. And this is also in this vein that our current strategy and our work for next 5 years continues. So we aim for a widespread adoption of the safe system, safe, sustainable motorsports, accelerated transition to low zero carbon mobility, and safe and healthy journeys for everybody in every country, every city around the world, which links very much with what already Gladys and Martin have been highlighting in their presentations. Very much in the context of safe streets, we planned together with colleagues from the World Bank to conduct a small study. The study was facilitated by International Transport Planning. It's a fantastic transport planning, as the name says, consultancy, and also supported on the ground by colleagues from Transit who supported with the research and community outreach. So what's the study about? Motorcycle safety and last mile connection in Lusaka and Maputo. So World Bank has been reviewing the provision of public transport in Lusaka and in Maputo to inform and prepare for implementation of integrated public transport system reforms. This was an opportunity to connect the study, to the study, add some value, get some very important, insightful information around two important areas. So role of motorcycles in urban transport and the implementation of this for the road safety, and understanding access to transport services at the household level. As I mentioned, mainly the study started from the recognition of the fact that this kind of citizen engagement could really benefit and enrich the work of World Bank, but obviously this also gave us opportunity to identify broader learnings around transport in in African cities. In terms of the research design, we focused on motorcycles, we focused on last mile access to public transport, and there are three overlapping data collection methods. We used motorcycle surveys, we used household surveys, and focus group discussions in order to get some qualitative feedback and context for what has been found during the survey outreach. In terms of sites, in both cities, Maputo, we focused on residents outside of the 500-meter walking distance of existing public transport stop, across three areas of higher, medium, and lower density in the city. These areas also being considered for inclusion as part of the BRT Light proposal, so very relevant to the very real transport work in the city. In terms of Lusaka, we focus on higher density informal compounds, which are further from the city center and less well served by public transport. In terms of motorcycles, what we wanted to check, what we wanted to find out. So how widespread is motorcycle use? Who is using motorcycles? What they're used for? What are the safety issues associated with their use? And what's the perception of the use? There are findings, there is plenty of data, and findings actually really still analyzed. So I just want to highlight the key things that we identified. Motorcycles are an evolving transport mode in both Maputo and Lusaka. There are also reasons to believe that a nascent motorcycle taxi sector might be emerging in Lusaka. And I think this is particularly interesting because all of us here at this call will know that Lusaka, Zambia, not necessarily always associated with the mass existence of motorcycles. So that's really interesting and important finding. Motorcycles either used for commuting or as part of the job. While women use motorcycles with the same frequency as men in Lusaka, women's motorcycle uptake in Maputo is far lower. Focus groups in Maputo found that motorcycles are seen as a transport mode for men, although interviewed women didn't seem to have a problem with using motorcycles if the opportunity presents itself. There was a significant age variation in motorcycle users between the cities. In Maputo, motorcycles are predominantly a young person's travel mode, 70% age under 35, while in Lusaka there was an almost even split between an under 35 and over. Motorcycles are seen as an uncomfortable transport mode. Cost does not appear to be a universal barrier to motorcycle uptake, with only 40% or less of residents in each city considering it unaffordable. And this is perhaps related to a low purchase cost. Important also from very much from the point of view of the work that Foundation does, safety came up as the biggest perceived issue facing motorcycles in two cities, with only 11% in Maputo and 18% of residents in Lusaka considering it a safe transport mode. Large minority of motorcycle riders in both cities reported having been involved in a serious crash, with a 1/3 higher in Maputo than in Lusaka. So the sample, as you have seen on the previous slide, is fairly small. However, I think that's another really important finding and another red flag for policymakers and governors of the city. And finally, helmets. There was a large variation in helmet use between the city. 50% of motorcycle users in Maputo reported using a helmet for every journey. Levels of enforcement were much higher in Lusaka, where 98% of riders wear helmets for every or most journeys. In discussions with stakeholders, this was linked to more stringent enforcement of rules in the context of Zambia. Much more can be read from the findings, of course, and we're still doing this, as I mentioned earlier, but I just wanted to note things that I think are really important to consider. So we all know that motorcycle taxi services, motorcycle use, this is booming across the continent, and there is a need for policymakers in every country in Africa, but this too in particular, to be prepared for the further growth. Rates of serious crashes are high in both countries, which leads to conclusion that perhaps motorcycle taxi service should be considered as an explicit part of transport policy. Ban or not ban, this is something that is a secondary kind of decision, but a recognition and consideration of how motorcycles should fit in the system should be considered. Of course, training, licensing, speed, alcohol enforcement, this is something that should be promoted and enforced, full stop, and compulsory standard helmets and relevant laws introduced to support that. Moving on to last mile, these are questions that we wanted to explore. How do people use mobility services? How often people use public transport? What is people's experience of travel at the first and last mile? What are the priorities for improvement of transport in those areas? What we found is that buses and chapas are the principal mode of travel in both cities. Car use remains low in both cities. The study found that there are two different urban models. In Maputo, people seem to walk longer distances to access employment in the city center. Work and study is a little bit more localized in Lusaka. Walking appears to be the prevalent mode of travel in peripheral Lusaka, also a major transport mode in Maputo. And this is, again, linking very much to what already been said by Gladys and Martin, and again stresses the fact that the recognition should be put into the fact that pedestrians should be made, should be having a safe passage. Further, people's walking experience was found to vary extensively between cities and neighborhoods. In considering safety from crime and harassment, residents in Lusaka felt safer than those in Maputo, with 25% considered the walk to feel slightly or very unsafe, compared to 44% who felt the same way in Maputo. Once again, road safety was also considered an issue in some contexts, probably depending also on the neighborhood. For example, 47% of residents in Chazanga in Lusaka reported not having sufficient space to walk and feeling unsafe from road traffic. And finally, considering priorities for public transport, coverage was the top selected priority. Shorter journey times was also important in Lusaka, where residents of Maputo put strong weight on having a direct route to their destination. And once again, much more can be found and read out from the study. I will note here only a few points and a few considerations that we thought were really important. Equity should be considered, so any genuine improvement and public transport reform should really focus on equity. Any future investments in transport should consider active travel infrastructure and citizen security. Capacity should be increased and is really key in terms of providing the coverage and connection into neighborhoods, especially those that are a little bit further from the center. Any reform should tackle capacity constraints, for example, the reduced wait times, and consider integration of fare systems to make sure that they are fair and available to everybody who wants to or uses the public transport system. So I will stop here. Thank you very much for listening, and yeah, very happy to discuss it during the webinar. Of course, very happy to discuss it beyond the webinar as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Agi. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Gladys, for these presentations. And I hope I will trigger some questions from the audience while we will pass to the panel. I invite the participants through online to put any questions they might have through the chat system. So after the discussion with the panelists, we would like to see whether we can address some of the questions that you put for us. Now, let me pass to the panelists. I would like you to put your cameras on, panelists, because I would like to introduce you. You know, beyond Agi, who will be as well as a panelist who's been introduced earlier, we wanted to give the floor specifically to the practitioners in Africa. because it's all good to do these studies and make these recommendations, but I would like to make sure we hear from the practitioners on the ground and put some reality checks to these recommendations through their experience. So I'm happy to introduce today 3 panelists from Accra and Addis and Freetown. From Addis, we have Meti Woodney Wodajo, who is currently the director of the Road Construction and Maintenance Design, Revision and Implementation Directorate of the Addis Ababa City Road Authority. Meti has 13 years of experience in this organization. Prior to her current position, she worked as a road designer for 9 years and as the director of the Road Quality and Safety Inspection Directorate for 2 years, opened the establishment of this directorate. From Accra, we have Patience Oni, is currently the Chief Road Safety Engineer at the Department of Urban Road of the Ministry of Roads and Highways in Accra. She has over 20 years of experience covering most aspects of traffic and transportation engineering. She is a specialist in road safety, traffic management, and urban mobility. And from Freetown, we have Georgette Green. She is an urban planner at the Integrated and Resilient Urban Mobility Project, Ministry of Transport and Aviation. She has worked successfully in diverse roles, including structural engineering, project management, quality assurance, and more recently, urban transport. Her experience has been enhanced by leading and working with diverse and multidisciplinary teams in engineering and non-engineering related projects. And the most recent include the Sierra Leone Integrated and Resilient Urban Mobility Project, Freetown City Council Mayor's Delivery Unit, developing a number of traffic management schemes, and a Royal Academy of Engineers sponsored project involving the upgrading engineering education in Sierra Leone. So I would like to start by putting the first question. I would like to start with Accra and Addis. I will start with Addis and then Accra, but I would like to put to you the same question, and then we'll start with Addis and Accra. So what are the 3 main road safety achievements in Addis and Accra? And what are the 3 main pieces of advice you would give to other cities who wish to tackle road safety from your experience? And how Addis and Accra integrated traffic management to tackle issues of road safety, especially the pedestrian safety, knowing that pedestrian is the majority mode of mobility in many cities in Africa. So let's start here from experience from Addis, and then we can give the floor to Accra too. Please, over to you.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I would like to thank us all of you for just giving me this chance to share our experiences. As it has been mentioned, the main road achievement is that we have got from this on the road safety is, the first thing is, it's known, it has previously mentioned, a strategy was created. The biggest thing that helped us to achieve on our safety issue is the creation of the strategy. So based on this, the main from these strategies that we have achieved is, the first thing is the pedestrian safety. That means we have created comfort for along the road corridor users. Previously, the Addis Ababa cities usually follows to design roads not as per the not to facilitate for pedestrians. Instead, it facilitates for vehicles movement. Rather now, after this strategy has been created, a great emphasis has been given, and everything is going to facilitate for the pedestrians, including even we are trying to rehabilitate the previously constructed roads which does not follow or which doesn't have more attention for the walkways. So the basic achievement that we have got, the first achievement is pedestrian facility. The second is the change of the design principles. After the strategies have been established, all the design principles has been changed into, instead of highway concept, it has been changed to street concepts. Still, we have different active projects. It is designed by even foreign consultants, even with the locals, since the Addis Ababa City Road Authority is one of the organizations who designs using their own forces and other consultants. The main thing we have achieved is our designing principle philosophy has been changed into street concept rather than into highway concept. This is the second achievement that we have got from these road safety principles. The other thing is the NMT, non-motorized transport strategy, that we have tried to use along these road corridors. As I have mentioned, on the rehabilitated road corridors, we just facilitate for making the smooth to facilitate for pedestrians in order to smoothly use the walkways. They doesn't have any other roadway infrastructure facilities. Rather, after the safety establishment, all the road corridors which are going to be designed and at the same time which are going to be constructed will have a cycle lane and other road furniture, walkway furniture. These are the main three infrastructures or the main achievements that we have got from these road safety principles. Lastly, it's regulation. It is enforcing the systems. See, nowadays, we are just studying the intelligent transport system, including the controlling center, including we are also constructing the controlling system, and we are also on the way to implement the construction on one corridor as a pilot project. It is under tender process. These are the basic things that we have achieved from these safety principles. So in relation to my advices, the main thing for other countries is it is basics, and it is necessary to create a strategy before we start one activities. Then in every movement that we are going to make, we will evaluate the countries, maybe the participants of the stakeholders will be different. For example, in our cases, it's not only the city's road authority. There is traffic management agency, it's by itself one firm. There is road transport bureau, by itself it is another firm, and also the police office, that is another also firm. We all organized, and everybody will be evaluated to achieve that strategic goal. So my advice is, it's basically the first thing is it's good to set a strategy in order to achieve or in order to develop the safety issues. And also, in addition to creating a strategy, when we create the strategy or the councils, it is better if we make our council the city's mayor, because it has great attention. In our cases, it has helped us to control everything, because quarterly it's going to be everybody will report how the strategy is going on. If there is some delays, everybody can give attentions for the mayor office. So the second thing is, after we create the strategy, it is good to establish a council which is going to be led by the city's mayor. This is what I have for the first question you have raised. And the other thing you have raised is how the integrated improvement, the traffic management to tackle the issues. I think the first thing, as I've previously mentioned, the safety council is led by the city mayor. This has also the basic and the biggest thing which helps to integrate, because every office, especially, will be accountable to the mayor office. For example, Addis Ababa City Road Authorities accountable for the Addis Ababa City, the Addis Ababa's mayor's office. Transport Bureau is accountable for mayor's office. Previously, there was some changes, was not like this. Nowadays, it was like this. So the main thing that helped us is to integrate the safety principle is the council is led by the city's mayor. The other thing is enforcement. This one has also helped us to manage the integrated improvement of the safety principle. Unless we enforce those parties who oblige to implement or who follow the right principle of the safety, no, it's will not be controlled in the future. For example, unless we penalize those drunk persons when they drive, who's going to control the system? This is one of another safety issues. If somebody doesn't follow the right safety, for example, traffic signals, this is also another issue for safety because it creates some accidents. So the second thing which helped on the integration of the safety is enforcement. The third thing is training. Especially the traffic management agency gives different trainings in the school zones, school areas for traffic policies. At the same time, for roads, there are so different persons from the community who are so committed to help the community in the safety issues. When they cross during the zebras, they organize those road users to use zebra crosses. So in order to implement this, the traffic management agency give a training for those participants. So this one, in some institutions and in some areas, they also give and highlight on what the safety issue by itself is. And they try to show, and sometimes it was some conferences were implemented in the city, showing how the severity of the accident is, showing some crashed cars on the roadside to show the community how the accident is severe and the safety negligence is severe. So this is how the integration of the safety is doing. The other thing is, to some extent, assigning controlling peoples. For example, in some, it has been started to establish dedicated bus lanes. So on these bus lanes, some for example, some vehicles or will be mixed taxis, they can use these dedicated lanes instead of giving priority for buses. So in order to avoid this, or at the same time, the traffic, majority of the traffic systems are managed by the traffic management agency. So they have trained some graduated pupils and assigned on the roadsides in order to penalize those drivers who oblige who doesn't follow the right alignment. This is the second thing that I have. Can I proceed to the second question?
Thank you. I think that was really, really interesting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. If we have time, we'll come back to you.
Okay.
But I think you covered very well the question we put to you from strategy, design standards, taking into consideration the non-motorized transport, the importance of enforcement, and more interesting as well, I would like to come back, maybe if we have time with you, about this coordination, the institutional coordination, which is really a big challenge in this area. So I would like to hear now from the experience of Accra with patients, Oni. The same question to you again. If you can just share with us the experience of Accra as we did with Addis. Over to you, patients.
Thank you very much. For Accra, we have a very good coordinated system under an umbrella body, the National Road Safety Commission. We have the National Road Safety Commission who coordinates all the agencies and ensuring that our national strategy using our action plans are adhered to. And then maybe I'll be a bit biased in terms of the road agency, because that's where I come from. And for the road agency, that is the Department of Urban Roads, for the urban network, we have been able to develop and then implemented an area-wide traffic management center that we got funding from World Bank, AFD, and environmental facility, global facility. And for that traffic management center, we have been able to coordinate one corridor of all the isolated junctions. And we have been able to eliminate conflicts. We have been able to, we have hawkers on most of our streets. And because the junctions are coordinated and then there's a good flow, the hawkers are no more. We have improved capacity. And then at the earlier time that you could use more than 2 hours to go through the New Plan Junction to the CBD on the Sub-Saharan corridor, now you can use about 30 or less minutes to travel that section. And then we have also improved pedestrian safety at the signal points, where we have introduced a gap for them to cross using the signal buttons. We have also reduced red light violations using variable message signs informations, and then cameras to be able to stop the motor riders and all vehicles who used to run through red on that stretch. And here we coordinate with the police, MTTD, who are able to even use our data, our video footages, even to attest situations in the courts. And where there are crashes, they also come for our information to be able to justify their statements. We also are able to improve, how do you call it, maintenance. Because earlier on in other junctions, you could get the contractor doing 24-hour traveling on the road network to do maintenance. But here with the corridor, we are able to know problems and then even change the timings to suit the police demand or to release the flow of traffic. When there's an incident management, we speak with the police through Motorola or phone, and then we are able to correct incidences on the road. We are able to also divert traffic when there's a problem using variable message signs we have added to the system. We also have, we do asphalt overlays. We used to have a lot of, how do you call it? A lot of potholes. And then the asphalt overlay improvement works have come to correct the potholes and done an overlay to improve the riding quality and also reduce crashes. Earlier on, drivers will want to avoid potholes, and in that effect, they crash into one another. So potholes have been eliminated. We also do every overlay because of the blacktop and there may be poor street lighting. We strictly get the contractors to do line markings. And we also check this line markings so that they are adhering to reflectivity standard by using the retroreflectivity machine, so that the contractor, knowing that his marking will be tested and not paid for and may be rejected, we test it and we send them the reports to him. And then through that, we have created that awareness, and then they are coming on stream or online in ensuring that the line markings have the right quality paint and they are doing it well. We also do safety audits, if not even on all projects, at least for all development projects before projects are handed over. And then we ensure that the recommendations are tied into the snag list of the contractor, so that the contractor, especially when it is within scope, he is supposed to address them before he hands over. We also provide walkways on all developmental projects that are especially funded by donor partners. And then that increases the length of walkways we have. We also do install footbridges, and then we get it used by providing median barriers. We use median barriers to prevent the level crossing, and then we provide ramps to connect to the walkway so that the footbridges are used. We also do education and then engage National Road Safety to go on a campaign on sensitization in the media to help us educate and then get the infrastructure that we build to be used. We also do mass action of speed humps construction. We have come to understand that the speed hump is the only method that can reduce or check a driver to go reduce speed. So on all local roads, we go all out to do mass action of speed humps installation, and that has effectively worked. We have also done signal installation using our data from collected with the assistance of BRI, or even using near misses or information that we get from the general public. We are able to address safety concerns using traffic signals, and then address safety concerns using traffic management methods to reduce conflicts, and then to get our road users safe. And we also back the signal system with reliable energy source using solar panels or using backups. And I think largely this is the achievements that we have. And then it's for the advice, it is very good to have an umbrella body so that the roles or responsibilities will be shared, and then everyone knows his or her key role to play. It's also very good to do safety audits on all stages. And you don't really have to say that you haven't started or you are late at a particular stage of the project. For urban roads, for instance, at the construction stage, we have been able to slice safety audits at the percentages of progress at 0%, 25%, 50%, 75%, 100% throughout the construction period, so that at every stage, even when the main designs are not audited, at least during construction, some improvements can be done or changes can be done regarding safety. We also do, it's also good to do stakeholder dialogue, because without stakeholder dialogue or sensitization, you are pushing or forcing the projects onto them, and they may not accept it, especially where they are being affected. You know, we in Accra, mostly African country, we have encroachments all over. So where they are being affected, you need to communicate with them. And through that dialogue, they will accept it, although they may lose in terms of having their daily income, they may accept it. But then that notwithstanding, you need to always do enforcement. That's where there could be a challenge. So that enforcement has to go along with the measures that we put in. For the umbrella body, as I said, is very key, so that you need to also have a desk office. Desk office that is carrying out the road safety activities. Otherwise, to be more of constructing or doing the works, and there's no safety touch to the works. Many engineers, though they may know what to do, will largely neglect the safety issues because they are, and again in Ghana and maybe other African countries, you may not have some indicators that will push the institutions to measure safety, aside the crashes that we see in their numbers and then we reducing it. We do not have key indicators that will get every institution measured. So in that case, we need to have that the desk office that will be doing the safety. When that desk office is well trained, he or she will have that passion to always be on the lookout, to always ensure that at least some safety standards or measures are adhered to. And one last advice is training. We need to continuously train, whether you have done it before or not. It should be always training, so that you will be abreast to international standards, and then you always will have better ideas in addressing safety issues. In terms of the integration of pedestrians, we have always added walkways on our developmental projects. We always do crossings on our local roads. We do zebra crossings to get them to cross. And then we encourage our regional officers to always cover the section where the pedestrians will cross to, so that the zebra crossing is not open is not on the mouth or the edge of an open drain, so that the open drains where for the platform to use for crossing must be covered at that section. We also do bollard installation. Many times, although we use high-risk curves to define the walkway from the mainstream and from the development properties, people will still go and park. So we do mass action of bollard installation, and that one has helped also. We have done footbridges. The footbridges will improve the capacity, and then will also eliminate the conflicts, helping pedestrians to cross. And that's one, we always make sure we have ramps that help carry the people who would have a challenge using the stairs. And then we always put median barriers. The median barriers are very effective, and that's one, it prevents the level crossing, so that once the person looks ahead and sees that there's a barrier in the middle, he will not do a crossing at that point. And then again, National Road Safety do a lot of education, and so the facilities that we provide they assist, they do education, they even go to the extent of going to the lorry parks at key event times, Easter time, Christmas time, key event times. They go to the stations, they visit, they have booklets done for children to help them or learn about using the road. And then they also go to the media stations, and they even engage some of the institutions like the road agencies in carrying out their messages. So in brief, this is what we have been doing. And then that's the integration for pedestrians.
Thank you so much, Patience, for these insights about Accra. I'm really interested on this corridor approach as well, because the tendency maybe say we're going to do everything at the same time, but if you do it through pilots, corridor approach, and then extend it to other areas within the city center, I think that's really interesting. But I can see that common advice and features with Addis as well, in terms of standards, enforcement, maintenance, the importance of embedding the road safety audits, not only in the design, but through all the implementation and control. It's really interesting. So let's hear from Freetown. I know that Freetown piloted some traffic management improvements. I would like to hear a little bit from your experience. Specifically, how did you make a space for these pedestrians? How did you make streets in Freetown safer for pedestrians? Over to you, Georgette.
Thank you very much, Mustafa. Can you hear me? Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clear.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to share some experiences. As you'll be aware, I'm working as the urban planner at the Integrated and Resilient Urban Mobility Project, and that is being implemented by the Ministry of Transport and Aviation with all different implementing partners, including the City Council, as well as all the different government agencies. Under this project, the ministry seeks to modernize public transport, improve road safety, and increase climate resilience, including building human capacity. One of the currently public transport in Sierra Leone or Freetown, Sierra Leone as a whole and Freetown, is operated on an informal basis, and in fact the road space allocation prioritizes more private vehicles and low occupancy public vehicles. We have the motorbikes and the tricycles, what we call the okadas and the kekes. And so very little priority is given to pedestrians, and the road space is very inefficient, and congestion is quite rampant. And also street trading is very high, and in some instances, footways are missing or occupied by street traders. So through the project, we have worked with various agencies to develop first of all, a strategy to deliver more urban mobility interventions. And we have a lot of institutions with, I'd say, overlapping mandates. Sometimes these mandates are confusing. And working with them to develop a plan in which we use to deliver urban mobility interventions to ensure collaboration and an integrated approach. So we've done that at policy level, and we've got this strategic document. At the technical level, we've worked with various institutions as well, and consultants to develop a traffic management plan. And that plan addresses a lot of issues. We've considered increasing non-motorized transport, management of street traders, looking at the Okadas and Kekes to serve last mile journeys, improving public transport, designated bus lanes, reducing the congestion and traffic hotspots, parking management, enforcement, freight management, and signalization. So the plan has been developed to look at all of these initiatives in a sort of staggered approach, in a phased approach. And with that, we have discussed that in order to implement the plan, it might be a bit too much of a big issue to implement the plan, in one stage. It has to be phased, and to do that, we thought we should implement some of the more shorter measures or pilot them, so that the road users can get used to what some of the interventions will be. So we have worked with, as I mentioned, all the other institutions to develop this plan. And with the project itself, we are looking to implement some of the measures within the plan and all the other activities within the project by the end of 2020, in which case we will have installed some traffic signals in some intersections along the project corridor, as well as procured high capacity buses. At the moment, we most of the time use what we refer to as podas, mainly carrying 20 to 25 people. And so by that time also, we should have done dedicated bus stops on the corridor, guardrails to channel passengers to crossing points. All of these will represent a step change in the way we allocate our roads. So this pilot scheme that we've looked at is to enhance, to facilitate a positive attitude among road users, so that by the time these measures are in place, we should be able to use the roads the way we are supposed to use it. At the moment, everything is haphazard. Pedestrians or passengers, stop vehicles where they wish to stop them, and they move along. Some of the measures which we are looking to implement in the pilot phase, dedicated stops, so that everyone should ensure they stop at these stops to pick up and drop off passengers. We have high level of street parking, but also businesses use the road corridors for parking, their customer parking. And we have a lot of hawking and peddling of goods. And in terms of safe crossing points, there are zebra crossings, but they're not used in the way they're supposed to use. And there are so many of them, sometimes, it makes it very inefficient. And also roadside mechanics. So using all of these, using the footways and bringing in pedestrian conflict with vehicles, quite a lot of that. So pedestrians sort of tend to use the highway instead of the footways. So with this, the pilot, what we have done is working with two sets of institutions. We've got, in terms of the enforcement, we've got the Sierra Leone Police and the Sierra Leone Road Safety Corps. And then the Freetown City Council Met Police, who will be enforcing various, road safety issues, traffic law, and then the street trading. And we have organizations supporting public education. So we have the Passengers Welfare Organization. We have, there's a Motor Drivers and General Workers Union, Commercial Motor Drivers, Traders Council. So what happens is they are on the roads as well, with the enforcement agencies, talking to passengers and road users to move to dedicated bus stops, and also traders to move away from the streets to encourage pedestrians on the footpath. And this sort of body, this collaboration that we formed, works with the pedestrians to basically give them the education of road safety, engaging them at the parks, engaging them as they walk along, and answering questions. Initially, before the pilot started, we did some public engagements through the radios and TVs, but even then we realized that this is not enough. So on the streets, we have these support from these other informal organizations to pass on the message of pass on the road safety message. So far, key issues that we've got, or key success points. We have the enthusiasm of informal institutions to support the process, because what that means is they recognize that when there's little congestion, they can actually have a turnover of their vehicles and improve their income level. But we have some other negative points where we have stubborn passengers and drivers, especially the ones with these okadas and kekes, where you can easily hop on. So some of them tend not to go into the designated crossing points, but it all seems to boil down to continuous engagement with all of these various road users. In terms of pedestrians, the main issue is that roads are, the footways are used by everything else except the pedestrians. So they tend to find themselves on the streets or on the lanes. So working with these various groups to ensure that we don't have the traders on the lanes, we don't have the cars parked, customers for businesses parked on the lanes, we can continue to expect pedestrians who tend to find their way back onto the lanes. One of the other issues we have is the footways are not in a, so the state of the footways, and they're not, most of them are not in any repairable way. Most of them are not highly maintained. And in some instances, even though they're not obstructions, but the footway themselves are not in good condition for pedestrians to walk on. And so through the project, we have identified a length of footway. I mean, the project is on a specific corridor, but hopefully by the time this is completed, it should be extended nationwide. So within the corridor, we have identified a length of footway that needs to be improved to ensure that pedestrians can have access to them. And also this is the general corridor, but also one of the projects with the city council, also the CBD regeneration project also looks to improve some of the footways within the city, the minor roads, if you like, and so that will complement the work that the main project is doing, because the project is focused on the main trunk roads. So the city project will also complement and provide additional footways to ensure pedestrians are safe. In terms of the pilot, one of the issues that we also have is that so far enforcement has not been sustainable or sustained. So the general public seems to have low expectations that this pilot will actually work, because normally the authorities will start piloting something and they stop after 3 days. But since this is working towards the delivery of the project, which is December and is going to be for a longer time, so we are hopeful and we're expecting that this and once we get positive attitudes and people change in the behavior of people, the way they use the roads, I think that is more sustainable rather than just the enforcement. At times you cannot get all the manpower to be on the street, considering that for the moment we don't have all the appropriate technology that is required to sustain traffic management. The project as a whole will be implementing some of this technology anyway, so there will be traffic signals in some key intersections, and the control room to support the bus movement, and that should make all of this activities that we're doing sustainable. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, thank you so much, Georgette. I think that was really interesting. You know, the first result that you're having from these pilots look really promising. As you said, it's a pilot. I think you adjust as you go. That is really interesting to hear from firsthand on the ground the result of these piloting schemes. We don't have much time left. We went over the time that was allocated to us. I would like maybe there is one question from the audience. I would like to take this opportunity of having these practitioners on the ground from Accra, Addis, and Freetown. Maybe if you can help us answer this question, because it's really interesting. It goes, you know, it's beyond just the technical issues, but it's more on the organization, governance, and institutional issue. I think the question came from Mariama Whitemore. She is asking, what advice, help can you offer local government to help them influence central government to devolve road safety responsibilities to them as they understand their communities better? So I'm assuming it's not always, you know, this devotion is not happening in every city. Can you share any advice? How can you get more responsibility devolved to you at the local level from any activities that are still at the moment at the central level? Please, Freetown, Addis, and Accra, if you have any advice on that. Thank you.
If I may come in, we all know that road safety is a shared responsibility. So it's not really the institutions who are only responsible, the media practitioners, the politicians, the community, we are all responsible. So there's this projects that I have tried to do to engage what I have termed developmental assistance. So that's where you have a developer. It can be somebody building his house. It can be a commercial activity coming up with apartments or coming up with a shopping mall. So that's one, because you are having an add-on onto the road corridor, you have created some impact that has to be looked at, especially where it is negative. So what I do is that we call or we dialogue with that developer, and then for the frontage, you get the developer to understand and appreciate safety, and then that developer does the walkway and then ensures that the parking is not done at the frontage. So that's where you have a commercial activity coming up with a lot of parking, having negative impact on the road with his traffic. Then you get the developer, the commercial person, to share and address the negative impact. And we have gotten some of them to do roads. We have gotten some of them to do signals to help pay for some cost. Sometimes it comes with a little, like they don't want to accept the cost. But then with understanding, and then with the fact that once they don't address that negative impact, getting their generators to come and use the facility will be dangerous or unsafe. They buy in and then they accept it. So the community, sometimes you have an encroacher coming to sit around your neighborhood. You may think that you are helping the encroacher to sit there and make money by soliciting for arms or selling the walkway that has been provided. But that encroacher is exposed to risks like the fumes of the vehicle. He's going to cross the road to endanger himself by getting involved in a crash. And then he's sitting on the road too. He's going to block the walkway that has been done. So you may not need the institutions, you may not need the road safety to come and do education. You, the community living there, you can assist. Sometimes we carry on with our business, and then we who expect road safety do the negative by putting a shop at the front of our wall, and forgetting that once you put a shop, you are going to attract traffic, and then somebody is going to cross. How is a person going to cross safely to come and buy your item? And then you put in the frontage of a shop at your frontage, and you disturbing the walkway. How are you also improving safety? So we need to help one another, help the institutions improve safety. That's my take.
Thank you, Patience. I'm aware a bit of time. I would like to hear if Addis or Freetown can share. I mean, my main question, the question that came is really assuming that at the local level, you don't have some, the responsibilities of some local activities related to road safety are still hanging at the central level, and you would like to make sure that as you are the one who are close to the users, to make sure that you will be given these responsibilities. This is really the main question that we'd like to hear from you. Whether if it's not the case, you know, if it's not the case, then that's great. Knowing that it's a problem which is local, you need some local solutions. And are there any constraints at the local level to that restrain you from providing this local solution, because some of the responsibilities are still hanging at the central level? That's really the question that we'd like to.
Okay, the constraint has largely been budgets, funding.
Okay, funding. That's great. So let's hear from Accra and because we don't have much time. Accra.
Okay.
From Addis and
okay. Okay, thank you.
Very quickly, please, because we have.
Okay, actually, I will shorten the issues. I think the main thing with our experience is instead of just discussing theoretically, it is better to show some practical situations. When the higher officials or the higher managers or the city administrators, when they see some realistic situations, they will sense it how the case is. For example, it is better to show some exhibition showing the severity of accidents, as I have mentioned previously. And also in our country, the Bloomberg initiatives were trying to modernize drawing some pictures on the ground, temporary improvements on the intersection to show the safety. When they show the practical situation, it has been converted to the practical structural situations. And all the other thing is, it's better if they share their experience in a realistic way. If it is necessary, it is better if there is some situation, it is better if they invite those politicians or some city administrators to their country to show their these cases. I think they will come through, they become convinced. This is what
That's great. Thank you so much. I think the involved communication and participatory approach. Georgette, anything from you on that question?
Yes, I think this is the situation in Freetown, where we actually have a lot of things within the central government, and those functions have not been devolved to the local government. I think the key issue there is sometimes the political will. Sometimes there is the legislation is all there, but the actual actions to devolve the functions are not being taken because in some instances, maybe this is something that generates money and they want it to stay at the central level, then go to the local level because the government needs money. And in most cases, I think this is the main issue. As Meti says, I think it's more showcasing what the safety issues are and bringing that to the fore. Then at some point you might be able to draw their attention to the devolved functions that are left hanging in the central government. But otherwise, it seems a very difficult situation because in some instances, central government agencies do not even have the capacity, both technical and financial, to even handle such projects or such initiatives, and they are not close closer to the ground, closer to the people. So the key thing there from my perspective is the political will to get them to devolve these functions.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think we come to our end. I think we have, we went over time by 20 minutes. So I would like to thank everybody, the presenters, the panelists for these interesting discussions. It's very difficult to summarize all the takeaways, but if I have to, very shortly, I'll probably forget most of them. But the importance of really this coordination between traffic management and road safety at every level, at the city level. We heard from experiences on the ground in Addis, Accra, Freetown, the importance of having a strategy document instead of having this piecemeal approach. I think I like that, from Addis, it clearly came as a very, very good recommendation. Make sure that we adapt the design standards that we have sometimes hanging at the central level when we do these big roads, but to streets level at the urban agglomeration context. The importance of having, providing space and having this people-centric approach for pedestrian and non-motorized transport. The importance of enforcement, I think it came quite clearly, either in Freetown when you did these pilots or in Accra and Addis, that the importance of having an enforcement system and also the capacity building, at every level. I think we're taking a lot of lessons from here, this discussion, beyond the presentation that we heard from Martin and Gladys and Aggie. I think that's really a good harvest, I would say. So I will stop here, and I thank you very much once again for your time, for your participation, for these interesting discussions. So we have many questions that was put to us on the chat, but unfortunately we don't have much time to address them. So hopefully, this is, by the way, this topic and thematic area is something that we're going to address within the Africa Transport Policy Program in the development plan number 4 for the next 5 years. So the discussion on this topic we're not going to be terminating here. We will have opportunities to do further studies and hopefully we'll come back to you with to share the findings. So thank you so much for your time. Have a good time wherever you are, afternoon or morning, wherever you are. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye for now.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye. Maybe if you could turn on your cameras, I could do a little snapshot of all of the presenters and the speakers before you leave.
That's a good idea. Yes. Please, if you have, as you can see that
Gladys, Meti, please turn on your cameras. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Gladys. Thank you.
1 second. I'm going to do another snapshot. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kauri. Thank you for the help.
Yeah.
All
right, everyone.
Sorry, I need to rush off, so I just changed.
That's fine. Okay, bye for now. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.